Hey guys, welcome to today's Vehicle Visionary. Today, my friends here at Red River Chevrolet have given me access to this 2020 C8 Corvette. And yes, I did do a video recently on the C8, but there is a big difference today. Today, in my hand, I have possession of the remote. And so we're going to be able to do some things and look at some features that we didn't cover in my last C8 video. If you live in or around the Northwest Louisiana area, or maybe you're just looking for a different Chevrolet dealership to work with than your local dealership, check out redriverchevy.com. And if you come here to Red River Chevrolet to do business, make sure to ask for my friend Diane Walden, or the Corvette lady. So let's get started with our tour of this C8 Corvette that features the 3LT package and performance exhaust. And yes, I'm going to give you a nice exhaust clip in just a little while. Okay, let's start out our tour of the C8 here with the front end. And a lot of times when a car manufacturer comes out with a completely different style of a vehicle, which obviously this has been completely redone from the C7 to the C8 generation, sometimes you can't necessarily tell that it's a Corvette, for example, but in the case of the C8, that is not the situation. This still remains somewhat looking like Corvettes of the past. The lines show you that that's what it is. And of course, there are some dramatic differences as well. One of which being right here. Let me open the frunk. Of course, there's no engine up here, but you do have one of two storage areas here, the front, and there is another storage area in the rear just behind the engine. And that gives you a total between the two of 13 cubic feet of storage space. And while that may not seem like a lot when you look at those two different areas, believe it or not, that is only 2 cubic feet less than what the C7 has. And I realize obviously that's not all in one place like you would get with the C7, but there is a lot of room here. Now, one thing that I do think is very interesting, sometimes you'll see me in some of my videos, I will hop in the trunk to show you how much space there is, and there is no way I can fit here in the front trunk or the frunk, and might not be able to fit into the back. Today we're not going to try that just because I want to be respectful. This is a very special Corvette here at Red River Chevrolet. But one thing I want to point out that I think is very funny, and I'm sure it's a federal mandate or whatever you want to call it, something that has to be here for safety purposes, but there is actually a button here to release the trunk if somebody happens to get stuck in here, although I cannot imagine how they could. Now, I know earlier in the video I listed everything on the screen that comes with the 3LT package, and if you didn't get to see that, you can go back and actually pause the video at that point, or just look down at the description of the video when you're finished watching, or if you want to pause and then come back and finish watching, I will list everything there as well. But a couple of noteworthy features here that I'd like to bring to your attention. When you have a car that has a low front end like this, obviously it helps to know what you're doing and kind of have an idea of your perception of what's in front of you. And if you're not used to driving a car like this, one of the great features that this particular model comes with the 3LT package is there are two cameras right here on the front end. So when you pull up to something or start to pull into your garage or park in a parking space or whatever the case may be, you're going to see these cameras come on, and you can also turn them on with a button in the interior. I'm showing you that on the screen right now so you'll know where that is, and you can see what's in front of you. Of course, you do have a backup camera as well, which all vehicles do starting this year. That's been a federal mandate, if I remember correctly. But you do have those options there, although if it was me, honestly, I think I would always back my C8 into my parking space. And another one of the nice safety features that the C8 does have is cross-traffic alert. So you're going to know what's going on if somebody happens to walk in front or behind when you're backing in or out of a parking space. But nice little safety features to give you a little bit more peace of mind if maybe you're new to driving something like this and just kind of getting used to how all of that works. Okay, obviously the C8 has tremendous styling that carries over from the front end on to the side. The doors here and just the overall vehicle looks really nice. But let's talk a little bit about some of the new features here, one in particular, which is blind spot monitoring. The C8 Corvette is the first generation of Corvette that has that right here. That's never been offered before in the past. These are also power folding side view mirrors. They're heated and have the built-in turn signal indicator, and the driver's side mirror is auto dimming. Now, getting into the Corvette, very simple to do, kind of reminiscent of the C7. There is a little pad right here that you're just going to push on, and that opens the door on the driver's and passenger sides. Very simple to do. I'm showing you on your screen where that is. It's easy to find. But here's something that you might not know about. If you've seen some of my previous videos, tutorials, and other C7 videos that I've done, I've shown you what to do with the C7 Corvette when the battery dies. Let's talk about what you do with the C8 if the battery happens to die on you. Obviously that can happen. Right here, just beneath and kind of across from where your door handle is that allows you access to opening the door here, there is actually a little keyhole right there. And I'm going to show you on the screen how to pull the key out of your remote. It's actually very easy to do. Again, kind of reminiscent of the C7. And all you're going to do is push the key up into that little keyhole there, turn that, and the door is going to automatically open. If you're on the inside of the C8 Corvette, well, it's identical to what you would have done with the C7. There is a latch for the driver and passenger sides just on the inside of the footwell on each side. Very easy to deal with, very easy to find, no big deal. And of course you have capless fuel fill right here. And let me just, I don't know if you'll be able to hear this or not, but let me just hit the lock button. That locks the gas door. So even though you have capless fuel fill right here, when the interior is locked, so is this fuel door. Okay, before we open the rear hatch here and take a look at the engine and talk about that, let's talk a little bit about what's changed back here. Of course, additional great styling cues that just follow the whole lines of the C8 Corvette. But one thing you will notice that has changed back here, and tell me what you think about this down in the comments. Gone is the quad tip exhaust that used to be in the center of the bumper down here on the C7. You still have 4 exhaust pipes, but they're on the outside instead of all quad tipped together, so to speak. I just created a new word there, I guess. New terminology, and for the trolls, I gave you something to make fun of me for. Okay, now that we have the rear hatch open, let's talk a little bit about what you're going to find back here. Of course, part of the 3LT package is a cargo net back here, and of course, your additional cargo space, as I talked about earlier, that gives you that combined total of 13 cubic feet of storage capacity. And of course, here is the 6.2 liter V8 that is under the hood back here. And yes, it is the 6.2 that was in the C7 with a different tune-up on it, of course. There are some changes there. Now, the original numbers that were given by Chevrolet for horsepower was 495, but people have done what they do, and they get their hands on a C8 and say, let's see if that's how much it's really making. And there are videos out there that are showing that it's making around 550 horsepower. And based on a video that I did last year with the 2018, I believe it was, McLaren 570S, which has 562 horsepower. It does 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, pretty much the same numbers as this C8 Stingray do. And the double clutch transmission is the same in both, not necessarily the exact transmission, but that kind of a setup. This also has the 8-speed double clutch transmission, which I have to say is an awesome addition to the Corvette. So the numbers are pretty much the same, and I have to say that means the C8 has to be making that same, around that same amount of horsepower, 550 or so. We'll have to do our own test possibly in the future, because I do have access to a dyno jet. Now, if I can just get access to a C8 to put on that dyno jet, we'll see what we can do. Now, a lot of people I know have been concerned. There are vents here on the outside of the rear window. This is very common for a mid-engine vehicle, and one of the most common things I have been asked is, what about water getting into the engine compartment? when the rear hatch is down, the engine is sealed in such a way that it's not a problem. You don't have to worry about that. I know a lot of people have questioned that. So I promised you an exhaust clip, but let me give you a little fair warning ahead of time. Being that this C8 is brand new, it doesn't have hardly any miles on it at all, it hasn't come even close to the break-in period. And there's a lot to that. I won't go into what all of that is, but one of the stipulations to that is that you need to keep the engine under 4,000 RPMs during that 500-mile break-in period before you change the oil for the next 500 plus miles. So I kept it under 4,000 RPMs, but still what I did was I started the engine and then I went between the different driving modes so you can hear what the exhaust sounds like in each one. Thing before we move on, another little trait that is going to be reminiscent of the C7 Corvette and other models that are out there, other vehicles, but when you close the rear hatch here, you don't have to slam it or push it down real hard. It's going to close itself. You just barely push down on it. That's going to take care of it. Nice feature to have on your C8 Corvette. Okay guys, here we are in the interior of the C8, and I must say I really like the way everything is laid out here, and there are definitely some changes, but they're positive, and I'm going to get to one of those that I wish could have been integrated or maybe brought over from the C7 to the C8, but you know what, not having it is really worth the reason why it's not here, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But everything is very easy to get to. There are some things here that are familiar. You have a great heads-up display, and the controls for that are the same as what they were in the C7 and other General Motors products that you may be familiar with. And the controls for the windows and adjusting your side view mirrors and everything here on the driver's side door, very easy to get to. And the shifter is a little bit different from what you may have had in the past. It's basically a push button shifter right here, and right next to that, of course, is your traction control if you want to turn that off, and the button that I showed you earlier to the right of that where you can turn your front cameras on if you wish to. Another change that I think is great, something that's a new addition here, is you can use the rear view mirror as a conventional rear view mirror, but it is also a camera rear view mirror. And what that means, if you haven't seen that before or used it before, there's an adjustment right here underneath, and when you pull back on that latch right there or pull forward, it will use the rear view camera view right here on the mirror. And so you're not having to look all the way back through the engine bay back there and through the rear window. Instead, you get to see what's behind you without any obstructions whatsoever. And I have to say, I really like that feature. Of course, all the buttons or switches here, I should say, everything on this panel right here to the right of the cup holders and the shifter and all that is everything for your air conditioning. This particular model, of course, you can record data, you can record video. It keeps up with a lot of good things here. Steering wheel mounted controls, of course, paddle shifters. So if you want to manually shift your double clutch 8-speed automatic transmission, you can do that. And I like the fact that these paddle shifters are actually pretty large. In some vehicles, even high-end sports cars like the C8 Corvette, they're often kind of small. Definitely not the case here, so I like that a lot. Also, wireless charging for your cell phone right here between the two seats, and a premium sound system. I wish I could give you a demonstration of that, but because of copyright issues with YouTube, well, I have to be kind of careful. And you have home link for your garage and everything there. Everything that you would expect with GM. The infotainment system here, the infotainment screen, typical GM, very easy to use. Some people might have varying opinions on that, but personally I think it's one of the easiest in the industry to use. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, you can go through a plethora of settings. Obviously you can pair your phone and all that good stuff, Bluetooth, everything is there. But here's where that change is that I was referring to earlier. One of my favorite features on the C7 Corvette was the fact that behind the infotainment screen was a hidden compartment. And you could store little things in there. You could charge your phone. There's a USB port in there and different things like that. And you could just basically push a button. The screen would lower down and you could put whatever you wanted in there or get whatever out. You could lock that as well and put a code on it if you were valeting your car, having your car valeted. Now you don't have that here. But the thing that I like about the fact that basically the reason why it's not here is because the infotainment screen is now really facing the driver and basically set up. And I promise you, that is definitely worth that little change. And for some people, it might not make a bit of difference. Personally, I really liked that option. But I guess if I had to choose between the two, I like having that screen angled towards me, as really everything in the driver's compartment is angled towards. Okay guys, that is going to bring to a close my time with the 2020 C8 Corvette Stingray featuring the 3LT package. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I would like to thank my friends here at Red River Chevrolet once again for letting me have access to this car and giving me the remote today too. That has just been a great experience, and I hope you really enjoyed the video. Tell me what you think about the C8. Tell me if you're planning to buy one, if you've ordered one, down in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button. That helps me out immensely in getting this video in front of more people. And make sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I will see you next time on Vehicle Visionary.